talk a little bit more about Snappt. So before we dive into what Snappt does, how did you get in this industry? What was your origin story and that brought you here?
Yeah, great question. First and foremost, thanks for having me here. I entered the industry in a rather unique way. So my family has owned and managed rental properties in the LA area. So we have a multifamily portfolio called Berlin Properties. And so I actually started my career as a professional baseball player, and I was in AAA working my way up to the big leagues. And my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And he had been buying properties in the LA area starting in the late 80s and early 90s. And so I ended up taking over the family's portfolio. My co-founder at Snappt has been a friend of mine since we were 20 years old. And Noah's family also owned a portfolio of rental properties in the LA area. And so when he obviously heard what I was going through, he reached out just to say hey man, if you ever need any help, let me know, which I needed all the help I could get.
Yeah.
And so he and his father kind of took me under their wing, and they taught me about the property management business, and obviously I opened the books to them and to get some help operating. So I approached this industry at 22, 23 years old, kind of terrified, with really no clue, and was just kind of learning on the job from some experts. And that really changed the dynamic of Noah and I's relationship, right? We were just drinking buddies, and then we ended up being drinking buddies who also talked about property management and our frustrations with the rental application process. How do we get our leasing teams more efficient? How do we bring some of our operating costs down? And then, starting in 2017, 2018, we began to notice that more and more of our applicants for our own vacant units were using fake financial documents when applying to our apartments. So they're using fake bank statements, fake pay stubs, fake investment accounts, basically anything that they could, create a fraudulent version of, they would. And we didn't have any technology background. So our goal wasn't to build an AI fraud detection solution. We just were looking for something that would help our portfolio. So we both did a bunch of research, and we were shocked to find that nothing like Snappt existed. And then we had this crazy idea of what if we built the thing we were looking for? And so it's been 8-9 years of on this crusade.
That's incredible. Thank you. First off, I think it's a really amazing way that you're honoring your father's legacy and being in this industry and carrying that through.
Thank you.
Really cool work, and I'm sure he's where he is super proud of you.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I think that's really cool. I knowing the family history behind it now, I can see where the passion that you have for Snappt comes in. So,
because you feel it personally when you're literally the money's coming out of your bank account to renovate a unit, and it's your time and attention that goes into it, and then if someone defrauds you and it's me that's in eviction court, I don't want to. It's awful. It's the worst, and when you're sometimes in California, and now my portfolio is in LA, which is a really challenging portfolio. You can have someone dead to rights, but then you honestly look at the situation, you go it's actually better to just pay them 15 or 20K to get out than it is to actually go through the eviction process. Which is a really tough thing to do, and you have to swallow your pride, but I just got tired of it.
Well, it's an awesome way to see the problem and not just stick with the status quo of this is how it's always been done and this is how you fight it. I'm going to improve upon that process, so props to that. That's super cool. So you talked a little bit about some of the problem that you're solving at Snappt, but can you go a little bit further into what are all the different verticals that you guys are tackling, and what's setting those apart from some of the other solutions out there? I feel like fraud actually, OpTech this year, and maybe a little bit last year, but I feel like AI was definitely a big topic last year. And I feel like there's been this shift into talking a little bit more about what's happening in our industry with fraud specifically, and how not to take the side of one or the other, but I feel like there's been a lot of wool pulled over our eyes in terms of a lot of avoidance of this topic and how to improve upon it versus just sticking with got to go to eviction court this week. And that puts a lot on the leasing agents too, in terms of having to or the managers more so.
Sure.
But so talk to me a little bit about the verticals you have and how you're solving those.
I'm 100% with you that fraud is now, if not the biggest topic in multifamily, one of, and it's been an interesting journey, at least with me in this space. because in the early days, this was a sales team of one, and I used to literally get on with property managers, and like I would have to explain to them the issue of this type of fraud, and we would literally play them videos of how easy it is to take a real document and alter it, or to go on to the hundreds of solutions or the hundreds of fraud rings that are out there. And literally show them like how easy this was, and help explain to them, why they were seeing these delinquencies and these issues with bad debt, and that in many ways it's not your fault, it's not your leasing team's fault. And not only that, like you can't do this with your eyes. You literally need software that lives in the background to be able to do this. I think what differentiates us from the competition is, look, we have the largest footprint. We've got over 2 million units across the country. We're embedded with Yardi and RealPay. Yardi, Endrada, Resman, and Resident IQ. So they literally sell Snappt as part of their solution. Nice. And look, we literally built the IP to solve this problem. This has been, like I said, 7-8 years in the making, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours of engineering. We've collected over 9 million individual documents that we've scanned and verified. Our deep knowledge of fraud is, if I could be so bold, is unparalleled to anybody else in this industry, just mainly because of it's been our laser obsession. The vast majority of our competition has not built their own IP. In fact, what they've done is they've taken APIs from other solutions that aren't prop tech focused and aren't built for our industry, and they've tried to package them using different UI and UX, which in many areas look slick and is great, but it's not. These two things are not the same thing.
Totally. I think you also bring in the perspective too, and not speaking on the other companies because I don't know backgrounds on everybody, but I feel like the perspective that you bring of also having been on site, having managed portfolios, gives you a little bit of a different edge, in the sense that you're coming at it from a perspective of an operator, not as somebody that's like, this is a problem that I'm trying to bring outside solutions
Definitely.
to. So.
Yeah, and look, the reason why we built the solution in the way that we did is I know, and we know deeply how applicants try to game the system.
Yeah.
We know all the little tricks that they have. We also have a fraud forensics team that is a forward-facing fraud detection R&D part of the business, who's literally scouring Reddit and the dark web and all these areas, and is learning how fraudsters work together, the information that they share, the schemes that they have. We literally live there in the background, quietly just watching them and hearing about the new schemes that they have. There's fraud GPT, so it's like Gen AI that is working on how you can defraud properties and get through systems, and it's it's a huge part of our R&D effort. We spend $10 million a year on R&D just to make sure that we're staying ahead of fraud. And the reality is you're not always ahead of it. And there have been times, and there will continue to be times when we realize there's a new thing, and we have to scramble and come up with new ways of staying ahead of it. And so it's really starting with that foundation of fraud detection, and then from that deep foundation of fraud detection, that's when you can build income verification on top of it, which is what we've just released recently, which is not only verifying whether or not the document is authentic, but what is actually this person's financial picture, and then helping the leasing team understand instantly whether or not Daniel Berlin's documents and financial picture actually fits with the property. But the foundation has to start with this place of fraud detection, because if it doesn't matter what you're verifying. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about this evolution of fraud, because I think one of the things too is there are some perspectives of getting into some of these luxury apartments is tough. And there's certain thresholds, there's some, there's 1-bedroom units that start at $4K, $5K, totally get that. That's a hard one to get into. But then there's also even down to more affordable units and stuff. This is actually happening on not luxury communities.
It's across the board. You're right.
So it's not isolated to just people trying to get the swankiest penthouse. It's people that are like literally just trying to either get into a place and rent it out as a sublease and like trying to like hack that system, or they're trying to get a spot that they can just like completely like terrorize, like that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens with this. So like what's the perspective that you're seeing on this, like the source of what's causing this fraud, and what are some of the other ways that you're seeing people that might just be like a very simple no-brainer, like even just down to like a fake credit card to like add in here as like income verification or whatever?
Yeah, look, so I think that the first question was like, what's the source of the fraud? And look, candidly, what we do is we're looking at the data end.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily know someone's motivations. But with the 2 million units and the 7,000 units of properties that we have across the country, we've certainly heard a lot of anecdotal stories from customers, across the country. But I think usually what I find to be interesting is that most people will have some sort of point of view prior to using Snappt or really understanding the data that, this must be a Class A problem, or this must be a Class B problem, Class C, and they have their own talk track about why that must be. And certainly we had similar ideas as well. What we found is that this is like pretty universal.
Yeah.
It is across the board. It ranges somewhere between 7 to 10% of applicants across the country. There are definitely certain hotbeds for it. Places like Southern California, places like Texas, places like the Sun Belt are certainly hotbeds. There are certain cities that can be double digit and sometimes as high as 20+% fraud rates. And certainly we have seen lease ups are ripe, because a lot of
you're
times
trying to get that lease in as quick as possible.
You're trying to get them in. There's a lot of concessions.
Yeah.
Leasing teams are trying to move fast. Something that's always going to be at a fraudster's advantage is this. They're always trying to shorten a timeline and make you have to hurry up. So that tends to be a great part of it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what we've seen, is that it's pretty universal, it's pretty ubiquitous, and I think part of it has to do with the fact that leasing used to be done in person, and it's now almost universally done online, and so it just makes it a lot easier and emboldens people. Technology has gotten better, and and then at the end of the day, you also have applicants who are totally legit, who just want a place that they're going to pay for, and and they want to move in this weekend because they're ready to go. And so you really need to have balance, being able to react quickly and get applicants that do make the amount of money that they have and move them through the process, and make it incredibly easy for your leasing teams to identify who the good people are and move them in quickly, and very, very quickly identify who those that are gaming the system. And there are some folks that are doing this with the intention of paying the rent. Maybe they make $5K a month, and to be approved they need to make $6K a month, so they move some numbers around, or they buy a document or whatever, and in their mind, like, I'm going to pay this rent. It doesn't matter. The issue is that if you have a fraudulent document, and if you're looking at 7 times more likely to end up in eviction. And so regardless if your intent is to pay or you have some nefarious reason, it's important for the leasing teams to know. And frankly, I think, I'm sure applicants never see it, but in a way, like it's better that it's not putting yourself at financial risk. Let's put it that way.
Well, and that's also where it's like, I think that part's super interesting, is like when I moved down to California right out of college, didn't have a job.
Right.
The income that I had was commercial fishing up in Alaska.
Oh, no kidding.
Which was seasonal. And
so, sure.
Didn't have that.
But you can make big money during the salmon run and all that, right?
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's like, it's not something that you show like this spike.
Correct.
Over a 2-month period, and the property manager is going to be like, totally, let's list the apartments.
This seems stable.
Yeah, but you also, it's like, I think the approach that I had coming into this was like, this is where I'm at. This is like, I have a college degree, I have background in this is where I'm going, I already have interviews lined up. I like very transparent about like where I'm at with this, and they're like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, just let us know when things get secured. but you're like, we'll lease this to you, but like we'll also earmark this of like keeping tabs and like make sure. And they worked with us on that. So like
really
that
cool.
was like really cool. And so like having that like transparency and that honesty, I think also creates a better relationship with your property managers.
Correct.
Which is awesome. And so I want to jump into the property manager side of things a little bit and talk about like this role of leasing agents, I think is continuing to be a topic. And I've been in the industry for like 11 years now, and I started on the marketing side right out of like on Greystar, but I was able to shadow a lot of these roles, and I was overwhelmed. Like I spent a week as a leasing agent, I spent a week as a property manager, and the number of like task throttlings that I had to do in order to do that. Like I even went to eviction court one of the days, like to see what that was like, and I'm like, how are you supposed to be a marketer? You're supposed to be a resident coordinator, you're supposed to be a concierge, you're supposed to be a maintenance tech, you're supposed to be a property manager, you're supposed to be an accountant, you're supposed to be a financial expert, you're supposed to be a lawyer, you're supposed to be a location specialist, like all of these hats. And yet it still hasn't really changed much. And I think tools like Snappt, like talk to me a little bit about how you're maybe alleviating that or helping support that so that they can have other focuses.
My man, you're right on it. And you know, the way I looked at it, you know, putting on my property owner hat was, you know, how do I create efficiencies for my leasing team, and what tasks are most important for them to be doing and what tasks are not. And at least the way that we looked at it, like in the early days, was we should not have our leasing team playing detective and trying to uncover whether or not a document is authentic or not, right? And
you look at the metadata of this PDF to see when it was actually created.
And you know, you're at risk of violating fair housing. There's just, and also it's just not effective. There's really no upside to it, right? So it's starting there, and then it's also like, okay, but if you look across the industry, right, like leasing agents on average is like a 50% turnover, right? And there's a conflict of interest with many leasing agents because they're paid a commission for the amount of heads they get in beds. But then at the same time, they're supposed to also do the underwriting and make sure that this person's income to rent ratio is correct. Like there's not, and there's also some people that 50% of the time they end up leaving that role. So this is really like this is the fox watching the hen house. And so the way that we look at it is let us handle that. Let us handle fraud detection, income verification. Let's give you pass fail. This is a binary thing that software, Gen AI, machine learning is perfectly suited for. This is a perfect use case for the way that the technology industry is moving. Obviously, I think that Snappt is better positioned than anybody in the market to solve this problem. But like this is a slam dunk for software to be able to handle. And so let's have leasing agents deal with other tasks, right? As opposed to the back office. And that's our mission, is how can we take off as much administrative load from them so that they can go back to being the charismatic ambassador of a property that inspires an applicant to want to apply and understand why your community is a great place to live.
I love it. Well, so people watching this, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is visit our website, www.snappt.com. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best ways.
Appreciate having you on.
Thanks, bud. Thanks.